There comes a moment in every empath's life when silence is no longer an escape. It becomes a sacred place of protection. For so long, you believed your strength was measured by how much you could endure. You answered every call for help, carried burdens that were never yours, and stayed in conversations that slowly drained your spirit. You convinced yourself that if you just loved a little harder, listened a little longer, or sacrificed a little more, the people around you would finally understand your heart. But instead of appreciation, you often found exhaustion. Instead of peace, you found pain. That is why this season is different. This is the silent season. Many people will misunderstand your quietness. They will think you've become distant, bitter, or emotionally unavailable. They will wonder why you no longer argue, explain yourself, or chase after people who walk away. They may even mistake your silence for defeat. But what they fail to see is that your silence is not surrender. It is wisdom. It is the moment you realize that not every battle deserves your energy, and not every opinion deserves your response. An empath learns this lesson through experience, not through advice. Every betrayal teaches you where your heart has been too open. Every disappointment reminds you that kindness without boundaries becomes self-abandonment. Eventually, something inside you changes. You stop reacting to every criticism. You stop trying to convince people of your intentions. You stop carrying the emotional storms that others create. You finally understand that protecting your peace is not selfish. It is necessary. Silence becomes your shield because it refuses to give pain a doorway into your soul. Every time you choose not to respond to disrespect, you deny negativity the power it seeks. Every time you walk away from unnecessary conflict, you preserve the energy that once disappeared into endless emotional battles. The quiet is no longer empty. It is filled with strength, clarity, and healing. Inside this silence, your heart begins to breathe again. The constant noise that once clouded your intuition slowly fades away. You hear your own thoughts instead of everyone else's expectations. You begin to recognize the difference between guilt and responsibility. You realize that you were never meant to save every broken person you met. Some people were determined to remain exactly as they were, regardless of how deeply you loved them. This season is not about becoming cold or uncaring. It is about becoming wise enough to know where your compassion belongs. Your kindness no longer comes at the expense of your own well-being. Your heart remains open, but your boundaries become stronger than ever before. The silence teaches you that true strength is not found in proving yourself to the world. It is found in refusing to lose yourself just to keep others comfortable. And as you continue walking through this quiet season, you will discover something extraordinary. The pain that once chased you can no longer reach you because your peace has become stronger than the chaos you left behind. As your silence grows deeper, something remarkable begins to happen. You notice that your heart feels lighter, not because life has suddenly become easier, but because you are no longer carrying weight that was never yours to bear. For years, you believed that caring meant absorbing the pain of everyone around you. When someone was hurting, you hurt with them. When someone was anxious, your own peace disappeared. You walked into a room and instantly felt the emotions that others tried to hide. You became the listener, the comforter, the fixer, believing that if you could somehow carry enough of their burden, they would finally find relief. But an empath often learns the hard way that another person's healing cannot come from your suffering. You were never meant to become a storage place for everyone else's emotional wounds, yet somewhere along the journey, you accepted responsibilities that did not belong to you. You apologized for problems you didn't create. You felt guilty when others made unhealthy choices. You stayed awake worrying about people who slept peacefully after placing all their emotional weight on your shoulders. Slowly, without even realizing it, you confused compassion with sacrifice. The silent season begins to untangle that confusion. It teaches you that love does not require you to lose yourself. You can care deeply without carrying everything. You can pray for someone without rescuing them. You can support people without becoming responsible for every outcome in their lives. This realization is not selfish. It is one of the healthiest lessons an empath will ever learn. As you stop collecting everyone else's pain, your own emotions finally have room to speak. Feelings that were buried beneath years of emotional overload begin to surface. At first, this can feel uncomfortable because you are no longer distracted by everyone else's problems. You are finally meeting yourself. You begin to ask questions you ignored for years. What do I need? What makes me feel safe? What brings me peace? What dreams have I neglected while trying to fix everyone else? Those questions become the beginning of genuine healing. Instead of constantly reaching outward, your energy begins to return inward. The compassion you once gave away without limits starts flowing back into your own life. You rest without guilt. You say no without shame. You stop feeling responsible for changing people who refuse to change themselves. And with every healthy boundary you establish, another piece of your strength returns. Some people may not understand this transformation. They became comfortable with the version of you that never stopped giving. They may accuse you of changing, becoming distant, or thinking only of yourself. But what they are truly noticing is that your boundaries no longer allow unlimited access to your heart. Those who genuinely love you will respect your healing. Those who only valued your endless emotional labor may quietly drift away. This is not a loss. It is freedom. Because every burden you release creates space for peace, and every piece of pain you refuse to carry brings you one step closer to becoming whole again. As you continue protecting your peace and releasing burdens that never belong to you, another truth quietly begins to reveal itself. The people around you start responding differently, not because you have changed into someone else, but because you have stopped giving them unlimited access to your time, your emotions, and your energy. This is where silence becomes a powerful mirror. It reflects the intentions of everyone in your life without you having to ask a single question. For so long, you believed that relationships survived because of your effort. You were the one who reached out first, checked in after every disagreement, apologized just to restore peace, and carried conversations that should have been shared equally. You thought love meant never giving up on people. But when you finally become still, when you stop chasing, stop explaining yourself, and stop trying to rescue every relationship, something unexpected happens. Those who truly value your presence begin moving toward you. Those who only valued what you could do for them begin moving away. Silence has a way of exposing what words often hide. Some people only feel your absence when they can no longer benefit from your kindness. Others miss the emotional support you provided, but never realized they were expected to give something back. And then there are the rare souls who notice your quietness because they genuinely care about your heart, not because they have lost access to your generosity. The difference becomes impossible to ignore. This realization can be painful at first. You may wonder why certain people never call unless they need something. You may notice that those who promised they would always be there disappear. The moment you stop carrying the relationship by yourself, it is tempting to take this personally, but their distance is not a reflection of your worth. It is a revelation of their priorities. Silence simply removes the distractions that once kept you from seeing the truth. An empath often spends years trying to earn love that should have been freely given. You believe that if you keep proving your loyalty, your patience, and your compassion, people will eventually treat you with the same care. But genuine relationships never require you to constantly prove your value. Real love is mutual. Real friendship is reciprocal. Real respect does not vanish when your usefulness ends. This season teaches you to observe instead of pursue. Instead of forcing connections, you allow people to reveal themselves through their actions. You no longer interrupt the process by making excuses for their behavior or filling every silence with another chance. You let time do what arguments never could. You let distance uncover what closeness once concealed. And while some relationships quietly fade away, something beautiful takes their place. You begin making room for people who respect your boundaries, appreciate your presence, and value you without demanding pieces of your soul in return. You discover that losing one-sided relationships is not losing love at all. It is making space for the kind of connection your heart has deserved from the very beginning. Because when you stop chasing people, the truth starts chasing you, and that truth will always lead you toward peace. Once you stop carrying other people's pain and stop chasing relationships that were never balanced, you begin to notice something you haven't felt in a very long time. Your energy starts returning to you. It doesn't happen all at once. It comes back quietly, almost unnoticed, like the first rays of sunlight after a long winter. At first, it's simply the absence of exhaustion. Then it becomes a sense of calm. Before long, you realize you are waking up with more peace than anxiety, more clarity than confusion, and more hope than fear. For years, your energy was scattered in every direction. A piece of it lived in someone's approval. Another piece was trapped in old arguments you replayed in your mind. More of it disappeared into worrying about people who never worried about you with the same intensity. You poured yourself into fixing problems that were never yours to solve. You gave your attention so freely that you forgot attention is one of the most valuable things you possess. Every unnecessary conflict, every one-sided relationship, and every emotional rescue mission slowly emptied your spirit. But silence changes everything. When the outside noise fades, your inner voice becomes stronger. You begin hearing your own intuition again instead of the endless opinions, expectations, and demands of everyone around you. The wisdom that was buried beneath constant emotional chaos starts rising to the surface. You no longer need someone else to tell you what feels right or wrong, because your heart has finally become quiet enough to recognize the truth on its own. This renewed energy doesn't just make you feel better, it changes the direction of your life. Instead of investing in people who constantly drain you, you begin investing in yourself. You rediscover interests you abandoned years ago. You find joy in simple moments that once passed unnoticed. You start building dreams that belong to you instead of living inside someone else's expectations. Every hour you once spent worrying becomes an hour spent growing. Perhaps the greatest gift of this season is that your emotional strength becomes intentional instead of automatic. You no longer give because you fear rejection or guilt. You give because you choose to. You no longer say yes to avoid disappointing others. You say yes when it aligns with your values and no when it protects your peace. That single change transforms every relationship in your life. As your energy returns, your confidence quietly grows alongside it. You stop questioning your worth every time someone misunderstands you. You stop measuring your value by how much you sacrifice. You begin to understand that your presence alone is enough. You don't have to earn love through exhaustion or prove your kindness through endless self-denial. People may notice that you smile differently now. There is less tension behind your eyes. There is a steadiness in your voice. The chaos that once pulled you in every direction no longer controls your emotions. You have learned that protecting your energy is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of self-respect. And when your energy finally belongs to you again, you become free to build a life that reflects your purpose instead of your pain. As your energy returns and your heart begins to find its natural rhythm again, you discover one of the greatest truths of the silent season. Pain begins to lose its power, not because the difficult memories suddenly disappear, and not because life stops bringing challenges, but because you are no longer giving pain permission to control your thoughts, your choices, or your future. The wounds that once defined you slowly become lessons instead of prisons. There was a time when every harsh word echoed in your mind for days. Every betrayal replayed itself over and over, and every disappointment convinced you that you had somehow failed. As an empath, you felt everything deeply. You remembered the conversations that hurt you, the promises that were broken, and the moments when your kindness was mistaken for weakness. Those experiences stayed with you because your heart was never built to be careless. It was built to love deeply. But loving deeply should never mean suffering endlessly. Pain survives when it receives constant attention. Every time you revisit the same wounds without allowing yourself to move forward, they remain open. Every time you try to understand why someone chose to hurt you, instead of accepting that their choices belong to them, you unknowingly keep yourself connected to the very suffering you are trying to escape. The silent season gently interrupts that cycle. In the quiet, you stop asking questions that have no healing answers. You stop searching for closure from people who may never be capable of giving it. You begin to understand that peace is not something another person hands to you through an apology or explanation. Peace is something you choose when you decide that your future deserves more attention than your past. This shift changes everything. You no longer react to every memory with the same emotional intensity. You can acknowledge what happened without allowing it to steal today's joy. The pain becomes part of your story, but it no longer becomes the author of your life. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you begin asking, "What has this experience taught me?" That single question transforms suffering into wisdom. You also realize that forgiveness is not always about restoring relationships. Sometimes forgiveness is simply releasing your grip on the pain so it no longer has the power to shape your identity. It is choosing freedom over bitterness. It is deciding that the people who hurt you will not continue influencing your life long after they are gone. This does not mean you forget. It means you remember differently. The memories no longer pull you backward because you have built something stronger than regret. You have built inner peace. And once peace takes root, it becomes far more powerful than the chaos that once surrounded you. The silent season teaches you that healing is not the absence of pain. Healing is the moment pain can no longer decide who you become. And that is the moment your heart finally begins to live without fear. By the time pain no longer controls your heart, you begin to notice something even more profound. You are no longer the same person who entered this silent season. The quiet days that once felt lonely have been shaping you in ways you could never see while you were living through them. Every boundary you set, every burden you released, every moment you chose peace instead of conflict has slowly been creating a stronger version of yourself. This was never a season of isolation. It was always a season of transformation. Growth rarely announces itself. It happens quietly through small decisions repeated over time. One day you realize you no longer feel the need to explain yourself to people determined to misunderstand you. Another day you notice that criticism no longer shakes your confidence the way it once did. Situations that previously stole your peace now barely disturb your spirit. The changes seem small at first, but together they reveal that you have become someone entirely different. The old version of you believed that being needed was the same as being loved. You felt responsible for making everyone comfortable, even when it came at the expense of your own happiness. You apologized for setting boundaries and questioned yourself whenever someone reacted negatively to your growth. But this new version of you understands something the old version never could. You are not responsible for managing everyone's emotions. You are responsible for protecting your own peace. The silence has taught you patience. It has taught you discernment. Instead of rushing into relationships because someone needs you, you now take time to notice how they treat you. Instead of giving trust away immediately, you allow people to earn a place in your life through consistency, honesty, and respect. This isn't fear. It is wisdom built through experience. Perhaps the greatest transformation is found in the way you see yourself. You no longer search for your worth in compliments, attention, or acceptance. You have spent enough time alone to discover that your value has never depended on another person's opinion. That realization becomes the foundation of a confidence that cannot easily be broken. As an empath, your heart has not become smaller. It has become stronger. You still care deeply. You still feel compassion. You still believe in kindness. But now your kindness includes yourself. You have learned that loving others should never require abandoning who you are. Compassion without boundaries creates exhaustion, but compassion guided by wisdom creates lasting peace. The world may notice that you have become quieter, but what it cannot see is everything that has been rebuilt inside you. Your mind is calmer. Your spirit is steadier. Your heart is no longer searching for validation because it has finally learned to rest within itself. This silent season did not take your identity away. It revealed the person you were always meant to become. And from this moment forward, you will walk through life not as someone seeking approval, but as someone who already knows their worth. When you reach the end of the silent season, you realize something extraordinary has happened. You did not disappear in the quiet, you discovered yourself there. The person who now stands before the world is not someone who has become cold, emotionless, or disconnected. You still have the heart of an empath. You still feel deeply, love sincerely, and care compassionately. The difference is that your heart is no longer unprotected. It has learned the wisdom that only experience can teach. There was a time when the opinions of others could disturb your entire day. Rejection felt unbearable. Criticism echoed in your mind for weeks. You believed that every misunderstanding needed an explanation, and every conflict demanded your attention. But the silent season has changed the way you see life. You now understand that not every voice deserves access to your peace. Not every invitation deserves your presence. Not every relationship deserves unlimited access to your heart. You have become unshakable, not because life stopped testing you, but because you stopped allowing every challenge to define you. Difficult people still exist. Disappointments still happen. Unexpected hardships still arrive without warning. But now you meet them differently. Instead of reacting from fear, you respond from wisdom. Instead of giving away your emotional balance, you protect it with quiet confidence. You have learned that strength is not measured by how loudly you defend yourself, but by how peacefully you continue walking your path. This new version of you no longer mistakes endless sacrifice for love. You understand that healthy love includes respect, honesty, and mutual effort. You no longer chase people who repeatedly choose distance. You no longer shrink yourself to make others comfortable. You no longer betray your own needs just to avoid disappointing someone else. That chapter of your life has ended. Instead, you choose relationships that bring peace instead of confusion. You choose conversations that inspire growth instead of endless drama. You choose environments where your kindness is appreciated instead of exploited. Most importantly, you choose yourself, not out of pride, but out of the understanding that you cannot pour genuine love into others if your own soul remains empty. Some people may say you have changed, and they will be right, but they may never understand why. They only see the silence. They cannot see the healing that happens inside it. They cannot see the nights you spent rebuilding your confidence, the boundaries you fought to establish, or the courage it took to walk away from what continually wounded your spirit. They see the result, but only you know the journey. Now you move through life with a quiet certainty that cannot be taken away. Your peace no longer depends on who stays or who leaves. Your worth no longer rises and falls with someone else's approval. Your heart remains open, but your wisdom now stands at the gate, protecting everything you have worked so hard to heal. This is the true gift of the silent season. It does not teach you how to escape pain forever. It teaches you how to become so deeply rooted in peace that pain no longer has the power to rule your life.